People hear the word Scrum Master and it sounds like it's kind of a weird title. Depending on how good you are at it, some people drop the R off as well and try and insult you with it. They say it takes you 3 days to become a Scrum Master, Certified Scrum Master. It takes you 3 years to be useful.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the series of What Do You Do? Now, I've got a really special friend of mine on this show today, which is Don. For everyone watching, are you able to just introduce yourself and what's the role that you're currently in?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Really appreciate the invitation. So, Don Sharp, I'm currently doing an account director and principal consultant role for Planet. Bit of a hybrid role. It's a whole mishmash of skills. So, firstly, I'm an Agile practice lead. So, I help Scrum Masters within Planet, and I help all Planet staff to develop their Scrum and Agile skills. I manage a quarter of our accounts. So, I look after the clients that we work with, make sure they have the resources they need. I also directly manage a number of the staff. So a lot of the more senior staff one-on-one. So try and act as a mentor to them and just help them develop their careers. Bit of business development. Also occasionally have to speak at conferences or write papers. So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things in a big basket. But one of the things that's central to my passion is Agile practices. So really glad to talk to you about it today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that was a lot to take in with the amount of roles and responsibilities. If we try to narrow this down, I mean, I think a lot of people out there would be curious as, like, what's a Scrum Master? Like, can you explain that maybe in the technical terms and also just simple terms for people to understand out there?
I guess it's important to have context because people hear the word Scrum Master and it sounds like it's kind of a weird title. Depending on how good you are at it, some people drop the R off as well and try and insult you with it. So if you think about how we developed software in the past with waterfall approach, it wasn't really good, wasn't really effective. So then Agile's come along. And the most popular implementation of Agile is Scrum. So hopefully that provides context. Vast majority of the world today is using Agile, 90-something% of companies, and most of them use Scrum. And the key role to implementing Scrum and getting it to work in a team is a Scrum Master. So it's an essential role. And I know that's a controversial opinion because there are a lot of people out there who say, I don't really need one, we'll be fine. And that might be true as an end state, but every team, if you're just new to Agile or if you're maturing in Agile, having a Scrum Master is absolutely essential to your team. They're a central person in your delivery team.
In terms of what a Scrum Master actually does, right? So say I want to be a Scrum Master, but I'm actually curious as to what they do day-to-day activity-wise. Is it like heaps of meetings? Is it client-facing? What's the sort of responsibilities that you sort of have?
It's a broad range, and I think it's so important to make sure that it's the right role for you because whenever you see people trying for a role and you can tell it's just not their personality type, a Scrum Master role does take a very particular type of person. Reasonably well-developed EQ and human skills, soft skills are important to a Scrum Master. Day-to-day, what it involves is you're basically working with a delivery team and you're working in these short iterations of delivery. Now, you are not a manager of the team, but you're a leader within the team in terms of the process. So you own that process in the team. And what that means is we're all agreeing to work together in a certain way that suits us and makes us most efficient in terms of how we deliver things, minimize the meetings, maximize the delivery time and the collaboration that we have in the team. That's a key part of the role. Another part of the role is preparing the backlog. So working with the product owner, making sure you've always got a backlog of things, which is all the things the team is going to do. So as the team comes along, like, hey, we're ready to do the next bit of work. What is that bit of work? That's had some refinement and it's all ready to go. So it's had some thought put into it. Probably the last thing, there's lots of things you do as a Scrum Master, but the last thing is probably that blocker or impediment remover. You know what it's like. You sit down and you say every day, what's stopping you from working today, Ben? And you say, oh, well, I can't access this code repository or I need to talk to this person that not been available for weeks or whatever it might be. The Scrum Master gets involved in trying to help you solve those blockers, things that are getting in the way of you doing your work. Rather than you just getting frustrated and the whole team getting blocked. Those are the main sort of things. So there's a lot of rituals in Scrum, and the Scrum Master's role is to sort of make sure those things are scheduled and run, and that the team shows up, and we get everything done together in a harmonious way, ideally.
It almost sounds like you're like the accountability partner, right? Like you're making sure everyone's, delivering as they expected. You're making sure you're helping so that they work at speed as well and that there's nothing blocking their way, right? So that sounds pretty awesome. And as you said, some of the things like people trying to drop the R in the Scrum and when saying Scrum Master, but it almost sounds essential to every single project at the moment with that, the way you're describing it. Going deeper into this, right? So Scrum Master sounds amazing. I want to be that person that helps people. I want to be that accountability person. I want to unblock the value for the team. Now, what are sort of some tips that you could probably give to someone that's interested in this role, wants to get into it? And as you mentioned earlier, like it requires a very specific personality, but are there any other tangible tips that you can provide to them?
Yeah. So, and it's one of those things, you don't want to boil the ocean and try and be everything all at once, right? It's like saying, I want to do my master's. I'm just starting high school, but I'm thinking about my master's degree. Let's just think about high school and get the first things done. So moving into the role, the sort of essential things you need to be a Scrum Master is obviously a Scrum certification. Now, there's a famous saying about that, which and I'm not even sure who I heard it from, but they say it takes you 3 days to become a Scrum Master, certified Scrum Master. It takes you 3 years to be useful. Okay, so that's something to always keep in mind, that be humble. Do your certification. It's like a 2-day course, and there's a couple of main providers that do that. There's slight differences between the two. You can look those up. Understanding the Scrum rulebook is a great starting point and how that works. Not in a religious sense, and I guess this is really important to not get religious about Scrum, because as you want to move up and mature your career, what you'll find is that you want to learn more and more different Agile approaches. Scrum's a nice little starting point, but it's designed for you to work with one team. It was never designed to work with more than one team. So as you get larger and larger teams, almost every company that you'll work with will have more than one team. You're going to need to bring in practices from other types of Agile. So start with learning Scrum, get your certification, look at other Agile practices, subscribe to Agile everywhere. So on LinkedIn, on YouTube, just read about Agile, work with the best thought leaders and just listen to their ideas. There's a lot of learning, a lot of great ideas out there. That's a great starting point, and that will hopefully get your first role. The way that you'll level up beyond that is, okay, well, I've got my foundational things. I know how to do Scrum. We've got the routine going. We've got the rituals going. You're going to learn most through experience. So if you do Scrum in one place and you just stay in that one place forever, you'll have a limited experience. If you get to work in different domains, teams with different missions, your experience will accelerate. If you top that up with additional learning, so get certs in things like SAFe, DSDM, large-scale Scrum, Kanban. Kanban is really important as well. And that way you'll have a whole bunch of other tools that you can draw on to suit the individual team that you're working in. And that's part of your job, is to help bringing those good practices in that suits the unique mission that changes for every team that you might work in.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like being in a tech company and working on different projects and engagement, it's always different. Depends on the people you work with. It depends on the type of work you're doing. It depends on the type of client you're with. Everything's always different. So it's not a one size fits all, right? Like you really need to be able to adopt different practices when it comes into it. So exactly right. We'll put a few links down in the description below, just in terms of where you could find these sort of links and this information. So Don's going to be able to help us out with, directing us exactly where we should be going. Working in the tech industry and hearing about Scrum Masters and the old school project managers, right? So there's this sort of myth or misconception that, isn't a Scrum Master exactly the same as a project manager? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, well, there's a yes and a no, right? So if you think about who's the central person that's sort of coordinating the process, that part of it's similar, albeit completely different processes. If I think about the reason why I moved into Agile and why other people might want to move into Agile, it's because we're genuinely focused on people. The buzz we get every day is from working with other people, and Scrum and Agile makes the people you work with, it makes their day better. And I'm not going to say that that's necessarily what project managers did, because project managers Gantt charts and routines, and it's going to be on time and on budget and all this sort of stuff. It's sort of an inverse model to how Agile works. Agile is very much works on, I want to empower this team. I want this team to be the best, each individual to be the best person they can be, and the interactions to be the best they can be. And together we're going to do the best things we can do every single day. And that's really what is at the essence of it. And when you get that high-performing team with really efficient delivery, focused on exactly what that company needs that day, and you do that every day, you get great outcomes. And that's the Scrum approach. And I contrast that with the project manager, which is someone had an idea at some point in time that they thought was good. They said they had a guess at how much it might cost, and then they did some plans, and then they pretended from that day onwards that nothing changed. And competitors changed, the environment changed, the tech changed, the cost blew out. People came to the team, people left the team. They ignore all the variables and changes, even the changing needs of the company, and just hoped that what they built in the end wasn't completely obsolete and was somewhere near the budget and time. Now I'm being a little bit cheeky there, a bit of hyperbole, because you still have room for project managers. There are agile project managers now, but a Scrum Master is not that. They're not necessarily there to track and manage all those things in that way. They very much focus on the team itself.
Yeah, it's spot on. I think there's always this human-centered approach and design when it comes to agile ways and just all projects nowadays, right? Like even if it's a standard project, sure, you can have a project manager come in, but it's like you said, it's almost rigid in the way that they work, and it stays the same. It's very static. It's not as dynamic and free-flowing as the agile practice is, right? Definitely cleared it up for me, and I think for everyone here. Are there any other myths or misconceptions about your role? So like things that you've heard of for people asking, like the Scrum Master title, what's some myth and misconceptions behind it?
Where do I start? There's probably quite a few. So one of them is, and people, it's interesting working. I've had the privilege of working with a number of clients the very first time they're doing Agile, and we're introducing it and we're explaining the concepts. And it's interesting the ideas that people have about Scrum Master, even those that have worked with it a bit. They think the Scrum Master is going to come in and manage the team. So they're not the manager of the team. They're not going to manage the individuals in the team. That's not ideal, because you need to have that distance where you're focusing on process and you're sort of seeing it as an independent servant leader. Now, I know Scrum, the official body, Scrum.org, dropped the term servant leader probably about 12, 18 months ago, which I'm really upset about, because I think it really nailed it. Because you are leading in the team, you're leading the process, but you're a servant of the team as well. And I think that humble nature is really important to all good Scrum Masters. So I think that's the first misconception. You're not there to manage the team, you're there to manage the process. Probably another misconception is, this one I'm quite passionate about, is people think, oh, look, this, and we've seen examples, this person was going to be a developer, or they're going to be an engineer, they're going to be something else, which was a hard skill, and they're more of a soft skill person. And so they've gone to Scrum Master because they couldn't cut it on the hard skill thing. And I just think it's so fascinating that people think that, because soft skills, which, as you would know, have more recently been known as power skills, are far more important than hard skills. Hard skills are a great starting point, and it's good to have that grounding. But the way you get to the middle of your career, to the top of your career, to the very, very top, it's all about those power skills or soft skills. And those are the things you develop as a Scrum Master. So it will naturally attract people that are good at negotiation, they're good at conflict resolution, they're really good listeners, they're active listeners, and they ask great questions. They're good facilitators. The person, when they walk in the room, they've got a bit of an aura about them, and you know a good Scrum Master because they've just got this natural magnetism that you feel you like talking to them, you're happy to share your issues with them because you know they're always going to be helpful. They've got your best interests at heart. That sort of personality type, there's a lot that you bring to the role. There's a lot you develop over time as well. What other misconceptions about Scrum Masters? Probably the one I covered earlier, which is Scrum Masters themselves. I've seen people sit and I've done the 2-day course, I've got the cert. Yes, that's it. I'm the world's greatest Scrum Master. I've got my Scrum Master cert. It's literally the start of your journey. Like you need to be so humble, and every conversation, every interaction, just learn, absorb, study as much as you can. And in 3 years, you will be useful as a Scrum Master. But it will take you that time to at least be proficient before you go on to level up and be amazing at delivering in teams. So those are probably 3 that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know that about Scrum Masters, and that's probably because I've been so distant away in terms of what the actual role is and what they do. So I've worked with Scrum Masters before. I definitely agree with the aura they bring into the room, right? And as they enter the room, as they start up the ceremony or the rituals that they come into, it's very different, right, to just how your team operates. And I think having that personality definitely helps when it comes to it. So. And definitely experience, right? Just getting a certification doesn't make you like the best Scrum Master or a very qualified one. I want to ask you a very controversial question, and if you can give you a very honest opinion about it, which is, do you think the Scrum Master role will be relevant in 5 to 10 years' time? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. I think anyone going into a Scrum Master role today as I said earlier, I think you're going to be developing skills that will position you really well for leadership positions in the future. So you may choose to be a career long Scrum Master and just level up in terms of your maturity, your experience, and reach. That's one option. You may also pivot into the other roles in Agile. So you might be a product owner, etc. So you've got those opportunities available to you, but those leadership type opportunities will come to anyone that's been a Scrum Master because you're naturally used to dealing with all the human issues, coordinating a team. You may choose to be a project manager and Agile project manager, in quotes. Some people don't agree with that title. I know some Scrum Masters who are now CIOs, but you can move up into that sort of level. Consulting is a natural move for Scrum Masters because the similar skills that you use as a Scrum Master, you can use as a consultant on other topics, other technology topics. And if I was to give general advice, if you're looking to move into becoming a Scrum Master, the background of broad awareness, like what's it like working with devs, what's some good dev skills, architecture, testing, understanding the key roles in any delivery team. You're going to have devs and testers in every delivery team. Occasionally you'll have architects. Understanding their language and what makes them tick, because they're all quite different, very different personalities and different brain types, the way they think. The more experience you have with that, the more effective you're going to be in creating that frictionless, positive team dynamic as a Scrum Master, which is a big part of the role. So yes, I think 5 to 10 years from now, no one entering a Scrum Master role today will be wasting that. It's going to be a great investment in your future in whatever direction you go.
That's really awesome to hear. And I think you're right in the sense that those soft skills as well, very transferable into any sort of role that you go into, especially a leadership role, right? As you move up in your career path or your journey, that's going to be super critical, and especially how you're dealing with people, right? That people aspect of things. I mean, before we end it off, say I'm someone that's just sitting on the fence, trying to decide whether I should do Scrum Master or I should just do something else. What's your final one line or maybe some tips for them?
If I was sitting on the fence, I'll explain to you, I'll just share with them why I got into it. I've worked the old way of working and I've done the technical jobs. So I've been the developer, I've been the tester, I've worked in those sort of roles. The difference there, it's so refreshing. It's like bringing joy and happiness. And I don't want to overstate it, but it genuinely is that. When you go into a company that's working in old ways and you bring in new ways of working that are based on Agile and Scrum, it just lifts the weight off everything. And when you study Scrum, you'll understand why it does that and how it does that. But every day for those people you're working with is going to be a happier day, a more productive day, more rewarding day, because they're doing small things frequently, getting rewarded frequently, and they don't have that burden of the old way of thinking and working. And being the person that brings that in and helps them on that path, it's just nothing's more rewarding than that. It gives you a real buzz. No other role will give you that.
That's really awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And I think for anyone watching can completely, I guess, feel the passion that you have for the role, right? So I just want to say thank you so much for your time, Don. It's been amazing to be able to chat with you, especially me learning even more about what a Scrum Master does. I've interacted with Scrum Masters on a daily with on the projects engagement I've been with, but honestly, Don has been an amazing one that I've worked with so far, which is, again, hence why I've got him on here to be able to talk to it. But yeah, thank you so much, Don. Again, we'll chat frequently and we'll see if this role is still going to be here.
Thanks so much, Ben. I appreciate the opportunity. It's great fun. Thank you.
No worries. All right. See you, Don.